NBA is getting ready to lock out, and I just decided to make this video because I feel like this is the most perfect timing. It's crazy. The two biggest sports in this country are going to be locked out at the same time. The NFL, which has been locked out for about a couple months, and the NBA, who's getting ready to lock out at midnight tonight. They're two different. It's the same problem. Two totally different ways to go about it. The NFL lockout is basically purely solely on money. The NFL, the NFL is more of which percentage of the money does the league get, the owners and the players get, and that's been something they've been fighting over. Now the NBA is totally system structured based. It's broken. You have teams losing money. 22 teams are losing money, and when you're in the business of making money and you're losing money and you have 22 of your teams out of 30 losing money, is a horrible thing to do. This video is basically about the NBA lockout and what the players and the owners want. And at the end, you guys can decide whether which side do you take? Do you take the player side or do you take the owner side? The NBA is money situation is kind of different. They have a set cap of every year. It's about around 50, 55, 58 million, around that range almost every year. But you can go over that amount if you have a player that's on your team who's a veteran that you've had for 3 years and you have their bird rights. Bird rights is basically a way to keep your veterans that you have on your team and to re-sign them, but you can go over that amount due to the fact that you have their bird rights, where you can sign them to a max contract and you can sign them to the maximum years you can, is six years. But if you can also do the same thing for a free agent. It's called the mid-level exception, where it's $5.76 million, which is basically the average. If you average up all the NBA players and you average their salaries, they make about $5.76 million per year, average-wise. And you can divvy that $5.76 million into how many players you want over that course of the year, or you can pay it on one player if you're over the cap, which it makes you get that better player, and you can go over that. So it's kind of a soft cap, but it's kind of not, and it's kind of a hard cap too, and it kind of isn't. And this is what basically they've been talking about. Definitely going to break down the owners' wants and needs, owners' wants in the new CBA deal, and the owners and the players' needs or wants in this CBA deal. First, it's all I'm going to say as BRI, which is basketball revenue income. The players in this past deal that they've had since about 99-2000, they've got 57% of the BRI, but the owners want to bring that down so the players get 40% of that BRI and the owners get 60%. And at first the owners want to have a 10-year deal, but the players want to have a 5-year deal. And the meaning that the players want to have a 5-year deal is because the television contracts that they have ends in 5 years. So they said we might as well divvy up everything in a 5-year deal so we can renegotiate again when the TV contracts come out. But the owners don't want that, because the owners want to, you know what, they get the 5-year deal, then we can renegotiate the TV deal, and now we can take a little bit more of the pie that the players are not going to get. And that's where they also are really, they're in and out and fluctuating off of that. But at first the owners wanted a $45 million hard cap. $45 million, you can't go past it. That's it. And that's going to be hard because there's a lot of teams that are trying to get these stars, and $45 million, you're not going to get it. You can't build a team with $45 million if you're trying to get star players. So then the owners came back and they said, you know what, let's just have a 62 flex hard cap, which would be $62 million. You can't go over. It'll help the owners because they don't have to pay luxury tax, which they have to do in the old deal, because once you pass that set amount, you have to pay a luxury tax. And they said, okay, we'll give them $62 million for the cap, That's it. You go over it, you cannot go over it. Also, in regards, since they want a 10-year deal, the owners want $2 billion a year. And they feel that that $2 billion a year will go towards the BRI, so that the owners can get that 60% and the players get that 40%. The owners also want to reduce player contracts, and they also want to reduce the rookie contracts. But I think that's not going to happen, because they actually have the best way out of all sports how to deal with their rookies, so they don't overpay rookies coming into the league like the NFL is dealing with. Also, a big major part of this that seems to not be talked about a lot is the fact that 7 to 10 of these owners were NHL owners. And a couple years back, the NHL went through a whole season lockout where they didn't play any games, didn't have nothing, and they ceased operations. And they felt like we actually didn't lose any money due to the fact that we didn't have to pay for maintenance, we didn't have to pay for a concession stand, we didn't have to pay for security, we didn't have to pay the other employees along with the players, so we actually saved money and we actually didn't lose nothing. So some of these owners are really pressed down, and they feel like, you know what, we're going to keep our stand here. If they don't take this $62 million that we're talking about in our negotiations, we're going to just lock out. And we're going to stay locked out. And that's just huge, because if you have some owners that have been through a lockout before, and they can go tell the other owners, well, I've been through a lockout before, it doesn't really hurt. But I think it's different, because basketball and hockey are two different sports, two different animals that you're dealing with. One is totally popular, one's on the downturn. Especially in this country, hockey is really not a high ratings sport unless you're in the Stanley Cup, and a regular season game in the NBA can out view a Stanley Cup playoff game, which you saw today. Now the players want the owners to adapt the system just like the NFL. The NFL has revenue sharing, where even if you're making, say if New York and LA and Miami and these big market teams, Dallas's, they make money off their TV deals and attendance. Since they make money off of those two things, they don't have to share that like the NFL. But in the NFL, you have to share with everybody else. So that means I would say the New York Giants, New York Jets, the Patriots would have to pay to help out the New Orleans Saints. And it would be the same thing, the Knicks or the Miami Heat or the Lakers or the Mavericks. They would have to help out New Orleans, San Antonio. They would have to help out those lower market teams, Oklahoma City, the Timberwolves, Cleveland, those type of teams. And they said, and the players feel like if you do that, you have a better competitive balance. So now you don't have to worry about teams doing this, because you're actually, other teams are helping out other teams. And they feel like that's the best way, because the NFL has been doing that for years and years, and that's basically how they've always operated. They also, which is huge, they're willing to take a $500 million pay cut, since they want the 5-year deal, which would be 5 years, and $100 million each, that they are willing to give up, but to keep the same rules, same guarantee contracts, same exception rules, same contract structures, because most of the contract structures are 10% and they're backloaded. So you would make less in your first year, but you'll make more of your contract in your last year. They also want to change when you have bird rights, like when I was talking about bird rights earlier, when you have your bird rights and everything, you take about your bird rights, the max you could sign for is 6 years. They're willing to take a year off that, and like a mid-level exception, the max is 5 years. They're willing to take a year off of that too. So they're actually giving up their last basically years in their contracts, and they're saying, if you do that, we'll take that back, but you give us there's another exception, except for we have 2 exceptions now, some sort of way like that. They also want to reduce, like back how they had it before, where when you're in high school you can go straight to the pros. I don't think they should do a type of system like how they do for college baseball, and baseball has it. Baseball has, you can go straight to the pros if you're high school, but if you enroll into the school and you go to school, you have to stay in school for 3 years. For basketball, I think you need to stay for 2 athletic years. You play your freshman year, sophomore year, then you can enter the draft. Or you can enter the draft right out of high school. Either or, which is a great way to do it. At the end of the day, I think the only way this deal gets done is if the players got to give in. The players have to give in to the owners, because I think the owners have a full stand. They have their foot in the ground. They're planted. They're saying, we're not going over this, and this is final. And I personally think that the season will not start on time. It either be like how we had in '99, how we had 50 games, and the season started in February. And maybe the worst case scenario is there's no basketball. That's only if the players don't give in. I'm on the players' side in this, but I understand the players have to give in order to get it, because once you start losing money, there's come to a point in time when you don't get your check, where it's going to be like, you know what, we got to give in. If the owners are not giving, if they're not budging on any of these things, the players are going to end up having to give in. So if the players don't give in, there'll probably be no basketball this season. If they do give in, and they give in a lot, I'd say that the season probably would start on time. But I think the season's going to start in mid-January, probably February, play 50 games, and we'll have a season. Let me know what you guys think. It's a lot of information. It's really crazy. But let me know what side you're on. You on the player side or you on the owner side? Also, I want to thank everybody for the support of my videos. The feedback is really great. Definitely making more videos coming soon.